What's going on, Imperials? Ash Ketchum has been the ambassador to the world of Pokémon through television since the beginning, for better or for worse. And it's no surprise that his Pokémon have become stars in their own right. There are plenty of Pokémon that I didn't give a second thought that I loved once I saw them on Ash's team. But Ash has a strange propensity for not evolving a good portion of his Pokémon. He's entered leagues with them and done pretty well. That is a feat much more difficult to do in the games. Maybe that's why he's never won a league championship before. Anyway, we'll take a look at the top 6 Pokémon Ash Ketchum should have evolved. Number 6. Scraggy. Look, I have a problem with Scraggy and its evolution. We know this. But Ash has one, and he might as well use it the best that he can. I still don't understand how Ash was able to carry around a rotation of 10 Pokémon in Unova, but he did, and Scraggy seems to have been left behind at times, feeling useless. After Palpitoad, Scraggy is the most questionable as to why Ash even has one. He already had a fighting type, and got a way better dark type later on. I'm aware that Scraggy hatched from an egg, so Ash didn't really choose to use it necessarily, and that would make it much harder for it to realistically reach its evolution level, but Ash also hatched a Noibat that evolved into a Noivern super quickly, so it could be done. I'm not saying that he needed a Scrafty necessarily, but just that they could have gotten a lot more out of his first real fighting-focused Pokémon since Primeape. Number 5. Squirtle. Pikachu and Bulbasaur both had the chance to evolve and didn't want to. That's fine, and I respect their decision. But as far as I can tell, Squirtle was never presented with that same opportunity. It's not that Squirtle couldn't hold his own in battle. Ash used him to great effect against many tough opponents. But to me, that just says Squirtle was well past the minimum level required to evolve. Do I think that Ash should have had a Blastoise? Not necessarily. One fully evolved Kanto starter would have been fine. But you can't tell me that the promotional material wouldn't have looked great with the beginning, middle, and end stage for each of the starters. But since Bulbasaur turned down that offer, it's only fair that it go to Squirtle. He seems willing to accept the greater challenge of more power. In fact, we see him actively trying to be more powerful in many scenarios. One particular time that comes to mind is when he trains with the firefighter Wartortles. He tries to keep up with them and show that he's of equal worth. To me, that sounds a lot like he wanted to maybe evolve one day, and the only reason I can think that they didn't allow this is because they didn't want to preclude the possibility of him ever returning to the Squirtle Squad. If your character arcs are driven by a fun alliteration game, then you might be doing something wrong. I think Squirtle worked out fine the way that they used him, but he easily could have had the opportunity to grow to become stronger if given the chance. Number 4. Boldore. I promise I'm not just ragging on Unova the whole time, but Ash did get a lot of new Pokémon there, and left many of them unevolved. It's not like I can say anything about his Kalos team. Despite the lack of type diversity, he evolved every one of them as much as he possibly could. The same can't be said for Boldore. He did evolve it from a Roggenrola, but this was Ash's first ever rock type. He should have used the thing with style. Brock used to monopolize the rock theme, but after he left, this Pokémon could have been a heavy hitter on Ash's team if he had let it. Boldore evolves into Gigalith by trading, so this could have been done a couple of ways. Number 1, Silent or someone could have caught a girder or something and they could have traded, and then immediately traded back to get their evolved forms. Alternatively, Ash could have traded with one of his other friends that he sees around the region occasionally, and used one of their Pokémon for a while, training it up and maybe even evolving it, and then eventually they would trade back. That dynamic hasn't been touched on very heavily in the show, so I think allowing Boldore to become Gigalith and take us on that kind of journey would have been a quite interesting and unique experience to see, and would have provided Ash's first rock type with significantly more impact. Number 3. Snivy. After 2 generations of having fully evolved starters, Ash just either didn't care enough or wasn't good enough of a trainer to keep that trend going in Unova. His Tepig did evolve into a Pignite, but I hear he's like the worst middle evolution ever, so if you ask me, they picked the wrong one to power up. I believe a Servine would have been a great, tremendous addition to his team. Ash already has experience with higher level grass types, so he definitely would know how to utilize it. Servine would still be slender and speedy, but pack even bigger punch in battle. And it could learn some cool new moves to go along with its more impressive form. Plus, his rival, we'll use the term loosely, had a superior, which would have made for an interesting dynamic whenever the two would fight, still giving it that underdog feeling, but being a far more believable way to battle than if it were still in its base form. Snivy was a far better and more useful member of Ash's Unova team from the start, so they should have rewarded it for that by being upgraded into an even more respectable battler. Number 2. Totodile. It seemed like they kept us waiting around forever in Johto, wondering if and when any of Ash's starters would evolve. Finally, we got a Bayleaf in the mix, and then it seemed he stuck to his Kanto roots and didn't evolve the other two. Years later, his Cyndaquil finally evolved, which would have been on this list had that not happened. So that just leaves poor Totodile as a base stage. So I think he should have evolved too, but I'm going to take it one step further. I think that Ash's Totodile should have evolved all the way into a Feraligatr. Just look at them beside each other, it's a natural fit. Ash's Feraligatr would be tough, but also maintain Totodile's odd, almost manic personality. Plus, it's only fair. To date, Ash has had 2 fully evolved grass starters, 2 fully evolved fire starters, and only 1 fully evolved water starter. And it took him 18 years to get that one, so who knows when we'll see the next one. And he doesn't even have a Poplio and a Alola, so at best we can hope that the margins will stay the same, but it's very likely that he'll at least get a Decidueye out of the deal. Having a Feraligatr in Johto could have given him another heavy hitter outside of Charizard, which would have been even more important once Charizard left. I don't really like Croconaw very much, but if he had fully evolved, Feraligatr would have been one of Ash's signature Pokémon that we still talk about to this day, instead of being one of the ones that got lost in the starter shuffle. Number 1. Gible. Honestly, I have no idea why Ash even caught Gible in the first place. He already had an amazing ground type that provided lots of comic relief. I know Gliscor left for a bit to train, but that's the showrunner's fault. You could easily write something different that doesn't force out one of the best characters on the show. But he did catch Gible, and he displayed limited usefulness at best, despite being the first dragon type that Ash ever had. He was constantly portrayed as being inexperienced and being unable to use certain moves. But imagine if this underpowered Landshark had evolved. It wouldn't have to do it very early on, even just before the Pokémon League maybe, but a Gabite would have actually been a worthwhile addition to Ash's team. And he would stay a Gabite because a Garchomp would have been way too overpowered. But Gabite could have stood toe-to-toe with many a fierce opponent, with victory actually being a plausible outcome, unlike with Gible. And he could still be brought back in later leagues to continue being a powerhouse on Ash's team. The bottom line is, if they were going to try and needlessly replace Gliscor, they should have gone all out. Ash having a Gabite would have made him that much stronger and an even better Pokemon trainer, instead of him trying to use someone that was so underleveled for that late in his journey. So, there are the Pokemon I believe Ash Ketchum should have evolved. Which of Ash's Pokemon do you wish were stronger? Let me know down in the comments. Also be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And we'll see you around next time!